Hello everyone, and welcome back to Tutorials of Tone. My name is Alex. Thank you so much for watching this video. What we're dealing with today, as you heard in the intro, bass, and turning our electric bass into a key bass with Miley Cyrus's hit, Party in the USA. Now, if you're like me, you're not a big fan of that style of music. That's just not something you prescribe to. But in a lot of wedding and dance bands, you will be called to play this sort of thing. It's really, really fun to dial this preset in particular and get this nice, cool synth bass thing happening with two separate whammy effects on the same scene. Let's dive into how we get that and get back to rocking. Here we have our layout for our song-specific preset for Party in the USA. On bass, I am using, as always, my Man Bongo 5-string with two humbuckers. I am on both pickups for the entire tune. This is a wonderful, wonderful sound to have at your arsenal, and I'm so excited to get into this. Here we go. First up, we have our input block, mostly stock settings here. The threshold of our gate is at negative 47.5 dB. This is a holdover from my Morse Music Man guitar and where I like to have it, but feel free to adjust this to your playing abilities. Switching to our normal scene, we are running into U.S.A. bass 400. This is a Mesa Boogie bass 400 amp. It has a little bit more lows, and it's a little bit more of a pillowy low end. And right out of the box, foundational, really getting that nice oomph, not a lot of attack going on in here. So as you can see, we've dialed out a little bit of the bass, brought in a little more treble, and took the gain up a little bit to bring us to unity gain. In our input EQ, nothing to speak of for the low cut and a 10K high cut. As opposed to my SVT bass, we do not engage the output EQ on our amp. We run all of that into a pair of SVT bass cab IRs with an 810 and then a 410 with an M88 on there. For our preamp tab, we just roll down a little bit of that 40 Hz in the low cut and some 10K in the high cut. Note that the slope is a little steeper on the low end than the high. In series, we are running to our medium room reverb just to give us a little extra squish when we engage and employ board recordings. This is a great way to not have such a sterile sound, but it's really not too overbearing. Nice and transparent. And now the moment you've all been waiting for, the implementation of the synth block within a Fractal preset. Normally, when I take an E-bass and put it into a synth bass territory, I use a fuzz to get that change in waveform. But for this particular song and preset, I needed to use the synth block, and we'll get to why in a moment. But first, diving into the tones that go into this synth block and crafting it. We're using a triangle wave on top, and this is the bulk of our sound, our tone for this. Almost everything here is at stock settings, and our voice 1 level is at 100%. You want to make sure that the tracking stays set to the default, which is the pitch and envelope, so it tracks your playing as opposed to some random input or external input that will change the pitch for you. Moving to voice 2, we have a sawtooth wave, and if you were paying attention to the level as we switch tabs there, you can see that that went down to 25%. This is not 25% sonically, but sawtooths are much louder. We want the triangle wave on top with the sawtooth coming in to create a little bit of that grindy texture, and that's why we've implemented that. And for voice 3, yet another sawtooth, but we have shifted this down 1 octave, negative 12 half steps. This is a great way to get that octave below without having to worry so much about bringing in a pitch block for that, or bringing in things that, suck up the CPU and the DSP. So let's hear each of those separately. Here is the triangle wave by itself. A nice mellow sound. Here's the sawtooth at pitch. here is the octave below. Now with that lower frequency, we don't need nearly as much of it implemented in, but here are the sawtooths by themselves. And bringing that triangle wave back into play. So that creates our synth tone. Note that I am playing up one octave from where I was previously, because with all of this shifting, with all of this excess synth, it tracks better higher. And if I were to shift this up an octave and play in the low register, you'd get this. Really low, not very distinguishable, other than the sawtooths to give it a little bit more definition. So as I mentioned before, there's a reason why I didn't use a fuzz for this. And that reason is the shift tool in here. I needed two different whammy effects, one that was 1 octave up and one that was 2 octaves up. There was no real easy way to do that with control switches, but there's a shift feature in the synth block. So I attached the same modifier to each of the shift tools. This is control switch 1, and each of them has a modified damping. So we can hear the ramp go up that octave and then slam right back down with a 0 millisecond release. This modifier goes up 1 octave on each of the voices, and it sounds like this. So as you could hear, you have to be very particular with your foot placement and timing. I'm used to playing this with shoes and not socks, and I haven't played this in a while. You have to be very careful with not making excess string noise and for being very precise about which notes you're hitting and muting when using the synth block. You also notice that as we go up in pitch, you hear a stepwise increase instead of a more portamento slide like a fretless. That is due to the inherent nature of the synth block. This is a compromise that I couldn't get around when using the synth block. However, the tail end of the second and fourth phrases in the chorus go up 2 octaves, and I needed the pitch block for that. Now, if I was using an Axe-Fx 3, I would have both of my pitch blocks available to me, and I could assign this to 2 different pitch blocks. Problem solved. But I digress. We are on the FM3, and this is a great workaround. Helps you learn the system. Here's what that sounds like going up 2 octaves. Now you want to make sure you release very quickly so you can hear it jump that octave instead of staying, as I played in the example. But again, you have control switch 2, about a 40 millisecond attack, and in this case, a 10 millisecond release. I really wanted a fast update rate, and you can hear it come down a little more than in the previous, because with that one, you're hearing the stepwise motion. With the portamento, it's okay to jump a little bit. For our FC controller layout, we have a very simple 3-button system in play. We have a toggle between scenes 1 and 2, Mesa bass, the clean bass sound, and our synth bass sound. And then FC2 is our whammy going up 1 octave using the synth block. And our third is 15 MA, meaning 2 octaves in classical notation lingo, which is using the pitch block. Both of these are set to momentary switching. So when you put your foot down, it engages. As you release, it bypasses or goes back to its original place. This is crucial for getting this sound to work in the way that it does on the original recording. Now, as you can see, it's a little bit of a tap dance left and right, but if you coordinate it just right, you get a lot of nods, a lot of cool people really enjoying the thing on stage, and a lot of really happy people dancing and enjoying themselves in the audience. And that is our primary function as musicians. Well, there you have it. Party in the USA, the bass preset for your favorite Fractal device, whether you're on an FM3, an FM9, or the Axe FX3. This is a great thing to whip out at a party when you're on a bass gig. Maybe you're doing dance, wedding, bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah. This song gets called a lot because it's insanely popular. Best to be prepared. But if you enjoyed this video, there are plenty more videos throughout the channel that you can check out. Other tutorials of tone, Fractal 101s, gear reviews, playthroughs, lessons, etc. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.